So the purpose of this video is to walk you through the process of constructing the basic robot body for your project. I'm gonna show you the basics in this video, and then there'll be another video that will show how to customize what's going on with the robot. Now, what you'll find in the beginning is you've got 4 tires, you've got 4 motors, a couple of wrenches, a screwdriver. You've got the body, which has a top and a bottom, and then you're gonna have several screws and a few posts. I've also got a few flathead screws that I'm not going to be using. But what I've done here is I've separated out what I'll call the longer of the screws, and then the shorter of the screws, and then there are very short screws over here, as well as some nuts that are going to go into the end of the longer and somewhat shorter screws. First thing to do is to take the top off and set it aside. So now we've got the part that's basically like all of the box except for the top. And then take the 4 motors, and what you want to do is you want to put them in such that the motor itself is pointing toward the middle of the case. So this is going to take a little bit of effort to get them to snap right in there. Make sure that all 8 of the wires are free and can be moved out. So and you need all of the motors need to be pointing toward the middle, and then all of the motors also need to be in the middle. So in the end, you should have the 4 motors all grouped together with each other. So we end up with a system that looks like this. Now what you want to do is you want to take one of the longer screws and one of the shorter screws for each motor. If you look in here, I don't know how easy it is to see, but there is a metal bracket right here, and that metal bracket on the bottom is going to need a little bit of a longer screw, whereas there's no metal bracket on the top. That's going to be the shorter screw. So for each of the 4 motors, take a longer screw and line up the holes in the motor with the holes in the outer casing. And so that's a longer screw on the bottom and then a shorter screw on the top. This is actually the main reason why I'm making this video, is because that was not easy to tell from the instructions. The instructions were as clear as they could be, but it's just difficult to see that from a handwritten or from a written document. It takes, as you can see, a little bit of manipulation. You got the longer screw on the bottom and the shorter one on the top, and you're going to repeat that 4 times. And if I can figure out how to fast forward when I'm editing this video, I will do so. If not, then you can go ahead and fast forward. I'm going to put the longer screw on the bottom and the shorter one on the top for each of these motors. And then, and I realize I'm doing that off camera, and then as soon as I've done that, then I'm going to take these 8 nuts, and I'm going to attach the 8 nuts to the insides of the screws. So longer on the bottom through the metal bracket, shorter on the top, and then the 8 nuts go on them. Now I'm just going to briefly pause the video because watching these nuts go on is really boring. You have a screwdriver and you have 2 wrenches here. That's all the tools that you should need. And so as soon as I unpause, I should have all 8 nuts on. And now you can see that I have in fact attached all 8 of the nuts to the screws. So the shorter ones always go on the top, the longer ones go on the bottom. Be very sure that the screw heads are on the outside rather than the nuts, because they'll interfere with the wheels that we're going to attach to these motors. And again, double check that all 8 of the wires are loose and can all move away from the motors, because we're going to need to do that. So the next step then is to attach the shortest screws, which are really the only screws you have left, to attach the shortest screws to the brass posts. Now we're going to flip the bottom over. So now we're looking at the very bottom of the robot. And you can identify that the base, although it looks largely symmetric, is not quite symmetric, because there's a cutout here which is going to be toward one end. This is the front. So this is going to be toward the front here. And what you want to do is you want to put these 4 screws in the 2 front holes here and here. And then you want to put 2 other screws on the 2 side holes. Sorry, it's hard to grab them. Here and here. And you might say, what about the back? And the back will be fine. So we've got these 4 screws, and then you take the brass posts and you need to screw each of them into those screws, which probably would have been easier if I hadn't put all 4 of them in at the same time. Tip those out here and line that up. Again, you can use your handy screwdriver, and if necessary, You can use the wrench, but that probably won't be necessary. You don't have to get these super tight. I know I'm doing that right on the edge of the camera there. And then the next one. These 4 posts are going to be what holds the top and bottom of the robot together. This is a really sturdy robot body, which is going to come in handy because we're going to use it to do quite a lot of stuff. Now we come back and we put it on the 2 on the outside here. Put that in there. And then screw that down. Again, don't worry about it being super tight. In a little bit, we're going to tighten it from the other end, and then it will all come together. This is probably a part of the project that one person could work on, while other people worked on the kickoff circuit, for example. Or if 2 people wanted to work on this part, that would be fine too. I'll leave that up to your team. Okay, so we have here where I've got the front is here, 2 screws on the front, 2 screws in the midline. Now I'm going to flip it back over again, and I'm going to put the top on. Now it's important to route these 8 wires up through this hole in the middle. You can do this after you put the top on, but it's just harder. So I'm going to go ahead and send those up. You don't have to worry about keeping straight which one is which for right now. And if everything has worked properly, you should find that the brass posts have lined up with the 2 holes in the front and with the 2 holes here on the side. And so that's where these other 4 screws are going to come in. It's nice of them to include all of the tools that we need with the robot kit. Sometimes they don't line up perfectly, and that's a valuable lesson, is don't tighten any screws until you have all the screws started, because if they're not tightened, then you can wiggle things around a little bit. Especially useful when putting on a spare tire. There we go. And now we can tighten them all up. You don't have to, you know, tighten them down super hard, but you don't want the screw coming loose in the middle of a competition. Okay, and now the only thing that remains is to put the wheels on. Now I don't know how easy it's going to be to see on the computer screen, but this has 2 flat edges on it, and the wheel has 2 flat edges on it. And your purpose is to line those up so that the wheel goes smoothly on to the 2 flat edges. You have to apply a little force, but not too much force. If you find that you're applying too much force, then you're probably doing it wrong. Okay, there we go, there's that one. I like to line the flat edges up to be horizontal, and then that way I can easily slip the wheel on. And line that one up, slip the wheel on, and there we go. Our robot body is complete. We have 4 wheels attached to 4 motors with the 8 leads for those 4 motors coming up through the top. We're going to put some batteries on here. The instructions say to go ahead and put the batteries on right now. We're going to wait a second to put the batteries on as part of the customization process. Actually, the instructions said to put the batteries on much earlier, but rather than screwing them down, we're going to attach them with Velcro to make it easy for us to change the batteries, and then you're going to put your microcontroller on the front half of the robot here.